Welcome to Turek Books Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Joshua Turek. We're never going to read all the books we want, but when someone tells us about a book, that's its own valid form of experiencing it. Our guests come in to talk about the books that left lasting marks on them as readers, and that becomes a springboard to who they are, who I am, and maybe who all of us are. So sit back, relax, and enjoy it. And who knows, maybe you'll end up grabbing a book or two. Maybe you've read some of them, and it's nice to hear someone else talk about them. We want this to be like a book club, but without the guilt. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Turek Books. So happy to have you here. If you can remember to like or rate the podcast, that does help us. Spotify now lets you comment under episodes, so let's get talking about books. If you want us to read your recommendations, which we are doing at the end of this episode, comment on our YouTube. Give us a book recommendation. Let's get talking, and even if we don't get to it on here, you could talk about it with like-mindeds on there. That's all. We just need you over on our YouTube. We don't need any of it, but you know.
You do need it.
Yeah, we
and
do.
And you enjoy it. Come on.
Okay, and you hear that voice? That's our guest who I'm so excited to have today. She's a comedian, a podcaster. You should check out everything she does. Harper-Rose Drummond.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm doing swell. How are you?
Good. How are you? Wait. I asked.
We do that for the rest of the episode?
Yeah, just
let's get into these listener-submitted things. And then they're just asking how we are?
I was so happy that I got everything out of my thoughts prior to introducing you that I was giving myself a break.
Yeah.
I forgot that we're having a conversation.
And that's okay.
Thank you. What's the name of your podcast?
Tea Time.
Tea Time.
Yeah.
Okay, so check that out right out of the gate.
Yeah, same vibe as this, so.
Yeah. Stuttering, stammering, falling apart.
No. I mean, this is like a classy podcast, and mine is more like from the depths of hell. So. Okay.
Well, good. We're contrasting each other.
We are.
Yeah. We're the angel and the devil in your podcast listening. So.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we can get pretty nasty around here too.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, I've said some things about David Sedaris that you wouldn't want to tell your mother.
Whoa.
No, I'm just kidding. I mean, you're right. It's pretty tame. I think did you ever watch that public access show, Rick Steves? He's like this very dorky white guy visiting Europe.
I'm so sorry to say this. I haven't.
Yeah, you're probably too young. Anyway, it's kind of like that.
How old are you?
I'm 39.
You're 39? Okay, I'm 31.
Oh, okay. So you're not like...
So it's like that's like the same.
Yeah, that is the same.
If you really think about it.
Yeah, so you just weren't watching public access TV. Okay. So it's a personality thing, not an age thing.
No, I think I was probably just too busy prank calling.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Can you even do those anymore?
You can. Star 67.
Oh, and that blocks your number.
Yeah. And
then the fun is had.
Yeah. And I'm in my 30s and I dabble.
Do you ever do it by yourself?
That's a little too much. That's a little too much. No.
Okay. Yeah, because what happens in that world of things? You just go to laugh after you hang up and you're all alone.
You're just sitting there. It's like doing Zoom comedy when you're just like alone in your room. You're like,
everything about the Zoom aesthetic just reminds me of this very sick feeling during the pandemic that I just never want to encounter again. Yeah. We've done one Zoom episode of this podcast, and we were lucky to have our guest to do it. But yeah, I try to steer clear of those.
Yeah.
You?
Zoom is painful.
Painful, right?
Yeah.
You know what's not painful? Reading.
So true.
How's your book life? You got a bag here. You do seem a little shy about it.
I know. I have my bird. I'm like, I brought books, but I will not show you.
You're holding them like a baby bundle. You just lifted Moses from the river. And
you're like, yeah, so let's get those books out. I just brought my purse and I'm holding it like a white knuckling. I'm like, oh, okay.
You may be our first guest who's just not going to show their books.
I'm like, you can see that there's pages in here.
They've been brought.
But this is actually private. So, sweetie, next land, let's get to the list right there. Okay, I'll bring out my books. I'll do it.
Yeah, do it. I mean, they're coming out.
You're getting mad.
I'm not getting mad at all. So for the people listening, the books are coming out of the pouch.
Now here's something. I accidentally did that thing where you're like, hey, bring like one or two, and then I got excited.
That's cool.
But We won't talk about these.
You sure? Okay, they'll just sit there. Yeah, these like I don't know where the self-consciousness is. These look like totally legitimate titles. You got Murakami on the top.
Whoa, I do. Okay, but then see, I have my guilty pleasure, Sarah J. Maas.
Okay, that's
Are
great.
you into this?
What is it? Tell me about it. Who's Sarah J. Maas?
She writes porn. This isn't porn. This series is not porn.
Okay.
But this, I'm trying to say bad words.
Oh,
but
okay.
But this is an 8-book series.
It's called The Assassin's Blade, first of all.
Ooh, this is good, and no one can tell me otherwise.
Okay. What's good about it?
I start crying. Okay.
What's good about The Assassin's Blade, anyway?
It's just fun. It's an invigorating read, and it just takes you, like, I get completely lost in this world. I love fantasy. Uh-oh.
That's good.
I hope you can handle that. So
I think most readers love fantasy. That's why we spend this time alone, like in our heads.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the subject matter of that fantasy can vary, but yours is a little closer to pure fantasy.
This is dorkitis at its finest, but I'm obsessed. It has like fairies. It has like.
Have you read?
Not me starting. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna bring this, but I'm
So-
not gonna talk about it. And then I'm like, oh.
No, that is like the thesis of the show. Bring books you're actually excited to talk about.
See,
So you're doing it.
dang, and this
Fairies.
is the problem.
What else? You got fairies.
Honey, okay, so it starts off, and she's like a 16-year-old assassin. Okay, and then just chaos and havoc just ensues
Right away.
She realizes, she might have accidentally been caught up with a bad batch of folks. Maybe she's not, rolling with the right crowd, and she goes on this major epic journey. It's almost like it's like a Greek mythology.
Yeah.
I feel like it's very similar to an epic quest that you would see in Greek mythology.
Yeah.
And that's why I love that.
And does it take place, like there's a hooded young woman on the cover of The Assassin's Blade?
Yeah.
Does it take place in like a medieval world or time, or is it modern?
It's definitely back in the day.
Back in the day. Yeah.
It's not, this is way back. There's not a cell phone in sight, honey.
Okay.
So there's no slang in this.
No slang.
No slang.
Pre gunpowder too. It's all blade.
Oh, there's no guns, honey.
Okay.
No guns.
Not even cannons.
Swords, magic.
Okay.
Witches.
Yeah.
Ooh, it is fun. You need to get into this.
I already am. Like I'm in.
I'm like, you know what? Just stop the podcast because you need to actually but
Yeah.
it's so much fun. I'm doing a horrific job of describing it, but
No, I'm literally, all I do now is like force myself to read books about the decay of America and the like evil of its beginnings. And I need a departure. I need to go into a realm of witchcraft and fairies and blades.
There's corrupt government in here, and there's a lot of parallels to what's going on in our modern Western society.
Okay, so it might even be an allegory for
heavy on the allegory. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Cool. Well, no, I mean, what a strong start.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're coming out firing, and I really appreciate it. So you said there's 8 books in the series.
Mm-hmm.
Have you read all 8?
I am currently on I'm on the 8th book right now.
Whoa.
And I was reading, so I flew through these. They're around this, they get a little thicker in size as they go. But I read all 7 books in a span of 3 months.
Nice.
Because I was so just infatuated with the story. But then on the 8th book, I've been really trying to chew on it because I'm not trying to just blow through it.
There's a sadness getting to the end, huh?
Yes, and I'm so invested. Do you know Bianca Christoval?
I think I do. Yeah,
Okay, she's
comedian.
comic, best friend. Well, she FaceTimed me one day, and I had just finished reading one of these books, and I was just weeping, and I tried to get it together, but I couldn't, and I answered the FaceTime. I'm like, hey. She's like, oh, no. What? Because I was really going through it. Like, it was a vulnerable time. And then she was like, oh, no, like, did someone pass away? What's wrong? And I'm like, no, just my characters in these books, like, they're just making decisions that's really going to end up really bad. She's like, honey, they're fake, and you don't know them. I'm like, I've invested hours in these fools. They're real to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's like that. It really is that emotional.
Yeah, and maybe it shouldn't be, but it is for me.
Can you see it as a TV show or a movie at some point? Or
I think this would make an amazing TV show, but not to sound like a douche, but it's just such an incredible story. And the way that she weaves, like, you think, oh, this is happening, this isn't going to come back. And she finds a way to weave everything back in. But I just would hate to see a TV show butcher this, because this is a piece of art.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is your baby.
No, this is.
That's why you were holding that
my
bag
God, I'm gonna
like
start
a
crying.
baby.
No, I love it.
You do. Okay.
But this author does write like fairy like smut books.
Oh, on the side, or as the main thing?
As her main, yeah. There's like a really popular series, A Court of Thorns and Roses, I think it's called, and that was gnarly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like gnarly in the sense that it goes into some pretty different corners of the mind. Oh, yeah.
Like,
gets right into it.
Graphic. And I didn't know that. My friend recommended it to me, and that's how I first got introduced to this author. And so I was taking a train ride from Seattle to Los Angeles, and then I was like, oh, I'll just read a couple of these books. Like, that'll be nice. And let me tell you, I felt like a pervert on this train. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like reading unspeakable sinful things.
Yeah, I wonder what the like protocol is on that, like as far as ethically, or like you wouldn't look at porn on your phone riding the train.
Right.
But reading a book, I think it probably you get a pass for that, right? Like an erotic book, because like no one can walk by and see it and like read enough that they're going to get, bothered or whatever.
Right. But I was reading it like how I was holding my purse in the beginning. That's how I was.
Oh,
I was like, oh
discreet.
No, I don't want people to know that I'm reading this filth.
Well, and also the filth must have been good enough that it like you were like, well, let's see what else is in the what else she's written.
Well, when I got this, I thought I was buying more porn.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I was like, oh, like let's go, like let's get juiced up and ready. I was like, summer, baby. Actually, no, it was the winter at the time, so I was like, yeah, let's go. And then it actually just ended up being such a captivating, amazing story, and I was like, oh. Eventually some sex comes, okay?
So like you started falling in love with her heart, not just like, the lustier parts.
Right.
That's cool. And so do you think 8 is all, like, is it going to be capped at 8, this series, or is there always possibility they could write more?
No, this is just capped.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're winding down, clearly a story you love. And yeah, there's always like a bit of mourning to finishing a book that you love or that you're invested in.
Yeah.
Especially if there's multiple ones and you've worked your way through the series.
Do you feel that loss when you finish one of your Smart People books?
Yeah, I do. I'm like, damn, take me deeper into the opioid crisis.
I want to learn more about capitalism.
Well, that's the beauty. You just look at your life and you're like, nope, it's still here. All the deep, dark recesses of late stage capitalism are still here, even when I look up from the book. And the fix has been in for a while. I brought these books, which are like, I haven't been bringing my own, but sorry, do you have a question?
No, I was going to say, I have this book. I haven't started it yet, though.
Really?
Is it good?
It's great so far. So The Image by Daniel J. Borstein, a guide to what he calls pseudo events in America. Written in 1961. I'm only 37 pages into it, so grain of salt there. But he, basically he talks about how mid-1800s, pre-United States news was reported when things happened. And then there became an increase in how media could proliferate. You could print newspapers faster, print them in the morning and the afternoon. And before long, everyone was addicted to news, and the media companies started creating news out of things that weren't. And so now we're like on this sped up timeline to craving more and more information, and they're creating more and more information. And he was saying like propaganda is like the simplification of information, whereas these pseudo events are the complication of information. And written in 1961, this is pre-Instagram, social media, and the real rapidity that we're at, to the point where I just couldn't help but think about the Donald Trump assassination attempt and how like that was a couple weeks ago and we are so far over it.
Honey, the second after it happened, everyone's like, and then just started making fun of it, and then the internet kept pushing. You have no time to process anything. It's just so quick. And
there's no difference between what a real thing is versus what just the narrative we want to keep going with is, right? It's like, no, we just further the plot. Whereas like, a former president and candidate getting shot at, that like, 50, 60 years ago would have been the talk of the year.
Yeah.
And now,
literally the year, and maybe years to come. But now we're like, anyways, this bozo.
Anyway,
okay.
yeah. And let's get to Biden resigning, and let's get to Kamala memeing all the memes and whatever.
There was some club in Atlanta that was like, all right, coconut Kamala shots, or I just said her name wrong, whatever. But it's like coconut shots, da 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 da, and like they just like went like full out, and it was the day it happened.
Right.
And I was like, wow, everything is a bit.
And that like detached irony to reality is like we're all just taking in reality like it's a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, these are our lives.
Yeah.
And he's talking about how in like the 60s, like they would create these events and people would go to them mostly to try to see themselves on TV. And at the events, they weren't actually having a good time. They were too far from the stage to see what was going on. You know, they were kind of bored. But then watching it at home, the announcers are, you know, it's all directed very slick. And the announcers are saying, it's an electrifying atmosphere. And you feel that way sometimes going to like sporting events where you're like, wait, this is kind of more exciting watching it at home. Because they like gear your attention span. I really didn't plan on talking about this book for as long as I am right now.
I'm happy you are.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, yeah, we're, you know... from the Assassin's Blade to, you know, JFK.
Yeah,
here we are.
Exactly.
But yeah, so anyway, and then that informs this other book by Chris Hedges, who I love. I read America, the Farewell Tour last year. It was one of my favorite books. A very sad, very grave book. Talk about crying. I was eating sushi in the grocery store, reading about these opioid addicts.
Grocery store?
We're going to bleep this out.
Okay.
But yeah, a nice one.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that you were...
I don't have a lot of money, but I refuse to like spend money on food that's intentionally trying to poison me. I'll go into debt buying good food. I'm not talking fancy food. I don't eat at fancy restaurants, but yeah, I'll eat good food just because I'm like, well, my body's really the only thing carrying me through this.
Yeah.
And I resent big corporations just like putting a new food dye into me that's gonna whatever.
Red 40.
Why why do you ask? What grocery store? Because sushi could be risky?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I know many a friend that has gotten food poisoning from...
grocery store sushi?
Yeah, from like Ralph's, Thorns.
Yeah, no, it wasn't those two.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was checking in on you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Though there's something very like American about eating grocery store sushi alone in your car.
Yeah. Dare I say poetic?
Poetic, yeah. Yeah. I don't think it's really touched upon as much as it should be. So then Chris Hedges, I'm crying to him in the grocery store with sushi. But anyway, he wrote this book in 2009, and it kind of is like the evolved version off of this book, The Image. He even within 16 pages cites this book.
Oh, interesting. So you pregame with The Image, and then you go in for the big dog.
Yeah. The problem is with the big dog, I've started flipping through it, and he hooked me right away. So I'm like, dang, Chris Hedges' writing is just more fun than this one. He's gonna win, I think.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because he starts with a wrestling match, WWE, and he's like talking about how the dramas of these characters very much reflect like the dramas of our society and just sort of how bankrupted it all is. Anyway,
yeah,
that's what I brought in.
Okay.
See, there's two, and
so
I feel
similar.
Exactly, because I feel
similar.
I feel so self-conscious about my choices.
No.
And yeah, like I haven't really been bringing books in, but these two kind of lit me up, especially because of all the presidential stuff and the optics and weirdness going on there right now, which we don't have to, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you.
I mean, hey, get me started. No, okay, no one wants to hear that, but I'm really happy that you brought those in because I have this book on my nightstand and I just haven't started it.
Really?
I'm a wee bit of a hoarder when it comes to books. I will buy like 30 books at a time and then I'll get on my Libby app and then just like rent all these books and then I'll get audiobooks and I'm just like, who do I think I am and when am I going to be reading these? I do get through them, but it's
patchworked.
Yes, it's very patchwork.
And how do you get to a book? Is it usually the fun one wins or like how do you choose one out of this horde of or this you know?
Truly just like a shot in the dark. With this author specifically, she was recommended to me by one of my close friends, and so she doesn't live in the same state as me, and I like to connect with my friends in like certain little ways. So she's like, oh, let me feel close to you by reading this book that you're also really excited about. So that was like a pull. But other than that, I'll just buy a big old batch of books or I'll rent a batch of books and then it's just really just like boom, just
Well, the
randomly
good
pick
thing
one.
about renting them is like it does put a ticking time bomb on you, so you do feel a little pressure to get to those library books first. I was thinking the other night as I stared at my 15 dual stacks on my nightstand.
Okay, so you do it too.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, it makes me feel less bad because I look at them like
there's memes that call it like emotional support books or whatever,
yes.
which they totally are. I was thinking, no, I don't have enough. I don't have too many books. I don't have enough nightstands.
See, exactly. I look in my room and I'm like, am I a hoarder or do I just need a floor-to-ceiling bookshelf?
Totally.
That'd be my dream, to just turn my entire room into a library.
Oh, it would be a dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the goal with this podcast, is to get it big enough that we can record in what you're describing.
Yeah. Okay, it's going to happen.
But yeah, all my bookshelves are like salvaged from back alleys. You know, you're driving
cool.
by and you see a bookshelf and you're like, all right, that doesn't look like it has bed bugs.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't have the diatomaceous earth.
Right.
You know,
No
all over it.
asbestos.
No asbestos or anything.
Yeah.
So you take a chance on it. But yeah, like a proper bookshelf would just change the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you'd think, oh, I actually don't have enough books.
Exactly.
Yeah, but they're spilling out of closets and some are on the floor. It's
Oh, yeah. I have a suitcase under my bed that's full of them.
okay.
Can't even use that suitcase because it's just full. And then I have my nightstand is completely full. And then I have 3 books on my bed at all times. One I'm reading, one I want to read, and then one come on. 3's
Whoa,
fine.
Yeah, what is that? You're describing literally every day of mine. I like make
I'll, like,
my
wake
bed.
up and I'm like sleeping on it. I'm like, yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm the same exact way. 3 books, my notebook, my phone. You know, it's like
that's not your comedy notebook, no?
This is just like my little, like if I don't want to bring a backpack notebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then I'm a hoarder. And do you like pens as well?
Love them.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what is this personality type? Because this is like a real thing.
You know,
This
maybe
is my personality.
Yeah. it could be a subsect of autism. I don't know. You know, we can hop on a test after this. But at least we're obsessed with this and not, dare I say, opioids. So
That's right. Yeah, we've neurodiverged in the same direction.
yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of comfort to me hearing that you're the same way.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a book lover.
Love books.
Have you always been that way?
Okay, so kind of. When I was a small child, my mom would punish me by both my parents started off as writers. So maybe they would get mad if I'm saying that they're not anymore. They're writers. Okay, don't sue me. But so they always had an affinity for literature in all shapes and sizes. But whenever I would get in trouble, my mom would buy me a book and she would say, okay, you have to read this entire thing. And then you can't, you're not going to be ungrounded until you give me a report on this book. And so I kind of grew to hate books that way until I think I was in 7th grade and I read The Kite Runner. And that completely changed the way that I looked at reading. I fell in love with that book. Also in 3rd grade when I read this, actually, I'm forgetting this, Walk 2 Moons by Sharon Creech. I was like, wait a minute. And then kind of, my mom's still doing the punishing thing. So it was hard for me to like really get back into reading. But then, and I was always grounded growing up because I was kind of a bad kid.
Well, and then you start acting out because you love books.
Right. And I'm like, well, now I don't have to pay for them. I'm like, I snuck out again, mommy. But
so it's like, yeah, they're associate. I don't understand that because they're saying that books are a form of punishment, which they're not. They're like
it's pieces of
they're
art.
a reward. I would probably reward my kids with books if they knew, if I had kids and they knew how to read.
Right.
2 big steps. But yes, in my imaginary parenting. But then also, yeah, if you grow to love books and then they try to punish you with them, that creates its own sort of.
And the thing about me is I do love toxicity. So maybe that's also why I go so hard for my sweet little bookie Anna's now, because kind of got a little rocky start into it. But yeah, so around 7th grade is when I really started loving. And then when I moved out of my parents' place, I think I was like 18 or something, I just got really into party mode, and I didn't read at the caliber I was reading for, like maybe 9 years.
Okay.
I just kind of took like a 9-year break. I would read every once in a while, but I couldn't really get into it. And then I read this book, The Song of Achilles, like over the pandemic. It was like really big on like book talk or whatever. And this got me back into it. And then ever since I read this in the pandemic, I have been reading so much again.
Really?
Yeah.
What about that book got you going again?
It's such a beautiful love story. And it's really, it gutted me. And I think that's also why I love fantasy books and romance books and stuff like that. I think it's just like fun to read. And there's something kind of pure about reading about romance in this way. And oh my God, I can't even talk about it. It's a really special book.
Really?
Yeah.
So do you gravitate toward books that kind of, you said it gutted you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's a really particular feeling with books.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen in other forms of art to me in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, just like sometimes it'll span generations in a family and you're like, oh shit, we come and we go and then we regrow and the story continues.
Yes.
And it's just like something that books do that, I don't know. Yeah. So that got you going again.
Yeah. And like to go off what you just said, like, certain songs can move me and certain movies and TV shows obviously can touch you, but there's just something so intimate about just because like you're sitting in silence or maybe you're sitting in a loud place reading, but everything else just disappears and it's just you and the story.
Yeah.
And there's just something so special about that and intimate.
I agree. Well, that's cool. So reading found you again. The pandemic kind of had some positive changes, I guess.
Yeah, and I stopped partying, and I stopped because I was just doing so many. I was drinking all the time. I was doing drugs. I was just like a mess. And then actually, this comedian told me that other comics were talking shit about me, that I was partying too much and I was a slob, and that really peer pressure and social shame really do work on me. Thank God. And so sometimes it's not always for the worst. It's actually good. And then that was rolling around in my head. And then I wound up on Book Talk for some reason. I'm like, I don't even read anymore. What's this? And then people kept talking about the Song of Achilles. And honey, I've read it like 75 million times, as we can tell by this ratted, tatted cover.
Yeah. That book does not look 4 years old. That looks like it's been through a few library systems.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. So then you're like, would a slob be reading this?
Yeah. Would they?
Did you start bringing books around just to be like, start wearing glasses even though you don't need them?
I had a fake glasses phase, but I got over it because I was trying to prove a point that I was in my good era. Yeah. And I said, let me just do actions and not buy a costume.
Yeah, just a little positive PR. Start changing the image. What drew you to this book, The Image? How did you hear of it? Because I just saw a tweet about it like a few weeks ago, and that's why I bought it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so my brother is a bookworm, honey. He can read like 3 books a week, and he's a lawyer on top of it. And so I'm just like, couldn't be me. But, we love to see it. But I'm pretty sure it was my brother who had mentioned it. And my brother, he's always reading books of this sort, and so that's sometimes when I'll buy a book that's like that again, so I can be like able to talk with him about his smart people things.
That's cool. So he's a lawyer, but he's also into the bigger picture. Mm-hmm. Well, and you were talking about the partying and stuff. It also seems like that sort of addictive personality, if steered towards something like books, what a treat, because you never run out of these things. Right. And they do keep you out of trouble. Yes. And I'm so much happier and so much more fulfilled just sitting in my room reading. Like my roommates, Gabby Lamb? We briefly crossed paths in the comedy world a long time ago. Okay. Yeah, she's really cool. That's who I do the podcast with, and that's who I live with. Okay. And we also live with our friend Kate, and like we all make content together, and then like no one in the house drinks, and so it's just like nice and cute. But they always make fun of me because I guess one time Kate heard me crying, like weeping to like one of my little fairy books, and I was like, oh, okay, so at least you didn't hear me vomiting. So this is a common thing, your friends hearing you cry, but it's over books. That's great. That's like, I don't think it gets healthier than that. I was talking to my brother. I'm like, do I need mood stabilizers or am I just passionate? And he's like, no, you're just passionate. And I'm like, or is it the blind leading the blind? Ooh, yeah. Lots of questions. Hey, as a guy who reads 3 books a week, I think you can take his word for it. Okay, that's true. Yeah, no, I don't know. I just saw some graph. It said like it was showing the serotonin in your brain after all these activities, and the top one was dancing more than mood stabilizers.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Can we all just dance our way through life? Not in this shape of a society.
No, we can't. There's no dancing to be had here.
No. I grew up in a family like where you only danced if you wanted to make people laugh, like make each other laugh, which was like fine, but then like you can't ever really do it with like any sort of abandon. I've found my dance since then.
Okay.
But yeah, it didn't come natural.
You seem like a very, like, you know, like a soft-spoken fellow. Like, I think it would be such like a fun juxtaposition if you were like all of a sudden like the wild dancing man.
Yeah, I can be that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like, of course, and you know, when I was young, drunk at a nightclub, could dance and just swivel my hips, like, you know, in a pretty bland way. But at some point, years later, I like stumbled into this ecstatic dance thing. I don't know if you know that. It's just a bunch of hippies getting around like a DJ and dancing among each other, but not with each other. Like there's some rules to it.
Okay.
And
real community. Yeah,
kind of a community thing. I didn't know many people in it. I would just show up when they did it indoors, because now they do it on the beach, and I don't have that level of confidence in my dancing ability, whatever. But yeah, you know, you kind of just learn to let go and go with it, and it could be pretty fun. And yeah, like you definitely do feel good afterward. It's a human thing. Like,
totally.
We would be dancing a lot more. Anyway, I'm not trying to talk you off of mood stabilizers.
It's probably coming for me one day.
You think so?
But I need to ask you something. Are you a deadhead?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm not. But I don't fault them. And actually, Elizabeth's husband is a
hey, girly whirly. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So.
Okay, Miss Thing.
Are you a deadhead?
By proxy. Okay. My dad is.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen The Dead a few times.
And I've seen it's like amazing.
It is horrifying, but it's amazing.
I just have this image someone told me of a person in full scuba gear with the tank on their back, and that tank was filling nitrous balloons.
Yes.
It's like that kind of carnival-esque atmosphere.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I just haven't like tuned into what's going on there.
Okay.
With them and fish, but I talked to people about it, and I asked them like. And they say, yeah, you got to kind of go to a concert and really feel what everyone's feeling before you can kind of have an opinion on it.
Right.
Is that the deal?
100%. Growing up, my dad would always be putting on the Grateful Dead, and we're like, God damn it, Dad. Like, come on.
Really?
At this point, just leave the family. Like, we don't want to hear this. But then finally, he was like, just please come with me to a Dead show. Just let me show you my culture. I'm like, that's crazy to say, but all right. And so we go. Now, allegedly, did we maybe do a kiss of acid as a father-daughter duo? And did we buy Molly allegedly from the sky with a really long silver ponytail? You know, you do the math on that, and it's equating that we did. And then we ate some of his gummies. And let me just tell you this. It was so much fun. It was, and I was like, I get it now.
Okay.
Because, you know, if I'm going to go, I'm going to really go. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to really, like, immerse myself. And if I'm going to be part of the culture, dropping acid with my dirty ass dad, that's the culture.
How old were you at the time?
This is probably right before I started reading this.
Okay.
In the pandemic.
So this is as you were winding down the party phase.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. This was almost like part of your grand finale.
Yeah, that honestly was my I haven't done drugs since.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no. And I was like doing them like a little bit.
So maybe that was an emotionally corrective drug experience.
Maybe it was.
It like kind of, started you on the path out of there. So maybe you have the who knows? Why did you think I was? I'm giving deadhead. Is that what?
You're giving dead? No, you. I don't know. I could just kind of see you rocking tie dye, and then when you were talking about the dance, I was seeing quality. They call them twirlers when they stand really close to the stage and they just like wear loose clothes and move their bodies kind of uninhibited by judgment.
The thing I like about the ecstatic dance is no one's looking at you because they're dancing too. Like you're catching glances of people and you take some things in, but I do like the mutual sort of anonymity of it. I'm not a dancer in the sense that I want people to look at me. Yeah. I don't want to be like, showing off.
Right.
I'm not trying to show off.
And you do project that energy, I just want to say, in like the best way.
Of like, hey, he's dancing
You're
for
like,
him.
I'm
he's
here
not
for my enjoyment. I'm not here for the clout of the dance.
the cloud.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to raise the vibration just as much as the next guy. Don't get me wrong, like it's not a fully selfish endeavor. I'd be doing it alone in my bedroom, but it's about the group.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad we cleared that up.
And me too. I'm sorry. It was a burning question I had to ask.
No, it took us down a fascinating avenue. That experience with your dad, that sounds like a book in and of itself that you could write.
Oh.
Or your dad could write, since he's a writer too.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll pitch it to him.
Yeah. Father-daughter dead.
Yeah.
Dance.
Hey-o.
Well, yeah, I'm loving your stack so far. I'm loving the conversation. You said Walk to Two Moons, maybe pre-Kite Runner or right around that time. What's that book about?
Okay, so my teacher read this to the class when we were in 3rd grade, and the whole class, okay, not me having plastic on it, okay, but I gave my original copy to my childhood friend to read, but so I had to go obviously buy a new one because I always have to have a copy of this. But so, yeah, it's by Sharon Creech. Oh my God. When my teacher was reading this to us in class, I remember that so many kids would start like passing out, just from like boredom. They're just like, oh God. And then my teacher, she ended up telling my mom, I don't really remember this, but she told my mom that like, again, okay, now I'm coming off like a head case because that's another crying story. But basically at the end of the book, like she finished and then we had to go out for recess and I just sat behind and I was just weeping. And then she was like, oh, I think she really is going to like to read because she was really captivated by this.
Dang.
And I was like, you don't know me. No, but I was.
So that was your first book cry.
Yes. Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's about this young girl whose mom goes on a road trip and then she just doesn't go back. And then she ends up going on this quest to find her mom with her grandparents. And, okay, I should have brought books that I can talk about, but it's really beautiful.
Are you this emotional with every element of life, or is it books in particular that make you tear up?
Let's see. Kind of.
Yeah.
But I think it's specifically books.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm definitely a sensitive person, but books just really get me.
Wow. Okay, Sharon.
So sorry, it's not the image.
No, it's just touching. Yeah, it's really cool. And I think I started laughing thinking of you in 3rd grade, starting that and then seeing your trajectory as a book crier throughout. I think it's beautiful. And I, like I said, I was tearing up at a nonfiction book in a grocery store.
But that makes sense. And the sushi, but
over sushi.
But I think that also makes sense because it also hits different when you're reading books about something that's so, I mean, I think you said you were reading about the opium crisis. Yeah, that's horrific. That's a war on American people that our own government is inflicting on us. And you walk down Skid Row, you walk down like any street and you see so many people, or outside of a methadone clinic on Hollywood Boulevard, like there's always a line out and everyone's just so sick and suffering, and it's because this country introduced that to us.
Yeah, and they got rid of like 30 million jobs, good paying industry jobs, to go make profits by manufacturing overseas, and left all these people with nothing to do. And the fact that we don't have good health insurance in this country, so people initially are blue collar workers who turn to painkillers because of injury and the fact that they need to keep going to work.
Yeah. And
then they're left out to dry. No, it's really sad. But I also cry during fiction too. I tear up too. Yeah. No, I've told this story. I wrote it in my poetry book about how when we were kids, we went and saw Free Willy with our aunt. And after the movie, she asked all the kids, okay, which one of you cried? And I was the only one who said I did. And so she let me ride shotgun in the front seat.
Oh.
Yeah. And I've been
tender.
Using my tears to manipulate people ever since.
Yeah, valuable lesson.
Joke. Yeah. No, I mean, but yeah, no, I've always been a sensitive person too. So yeah, I connect with it. And is this there appear to be like pyramids on the cover of Walk Two Moons. Is it like an indigenous story or?
So sort of, but okay. So the main character is half indigenous, half white.
Okay.
And her mom wants to go get in touch with her roots, so she goes on this trip. She's like, I just need to go away. And then she doesn't come back. The dad moves them, and then they go on this amazing quest, and she's just trying to like get in touch with herself, her family, find her mom. And I've read this book, I'm not kidding, it has to be in the thousands at this point. No, seriously. It's like I have to read it a couple times per year, and every single time I read it, I get something new out of it.
Do you really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
it's
a real
just,
masterpiece.
It's like it's so good.
How interesting that all the just symbology of it, the story, it connects with you, that like it like fits that much like a puzzle that you want to keep going back to it so many times.
Anything with mommy issues, sign me up.
Okay, got it. Well, so you like to face it head on.
Yeah.
You're not like.
I think I like the pain of it. It kind of feels good.
Yeah, to just kind of reenact it over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, we all have our. We all have our ways of
our little fun jazzy things.
Yeah. That's so interesting.
Can I ask you, what's a book you've read in the past few years that you really absolutely loathed?
Yeah,
what's one just didn't sit right with your spirit?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't like talking crap about books because I just feel like there's so many good ones we could talk about.
So true.
No, but there is one. Okay, I got it.
Okay.
And I still finished it.
Okay.
So I was reading Mike Davis, who's one of my favorite writers, City of Quartz. He has this section where he just really talks about all these LA books. One of the passages, he was like, Bukowski sucks. He's really not that hardcore. If you want to read someone good, read Art Pepper's memoir. Art Pepper was this white jazz musician who like thought the world was being racist against him because he was white, but he also had like a very traumatic upbringing. And anyway, him and his significantly younger girlfriend wrote this memoir, and it was just a chronicle of his addiction, in and out of prison. He had a rough go of it, but also he like definitely admits to doing some like straight up horrible shit in the book. And to the point where I was like, wait, do I keep reading this? Like, he just admitted to doing this really, kind of, horrific stuff. And ultimately, I was like, no, you got to keep reading, because just because something doesn't sit right with you doesn't mean there isn't something to learn from it. And so I finished that book, but begrudgingly, because it definitely, like, creeped me out. And so, it was the memoir of Art Pepper, the jazz musician.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
So I didn't hate it for its, its writing or whatever.
The content.
I hated how it made me feel.
Right.
And he's just, the second he gets out of jail, he's getting back into junk and, I think they called it junk back then.
I think they did too.
Yeah, heroin and all that. And definitely a sad story and a relentless story of addiction that's true to form. He was very honest, and I got to give him that. But the book creeped me out.
Yeah, stories about addiction are tough for me personally to read. Like, just there's like especially with drug addiction, there's such like like hardcore drugs, but like there's such like a grime to it. Yeah, and such the
OCD of it too is tough. Where you're like, oh man, this is a disease, and it creates these manic behaviors that are, maybe because I have a slightly addictive personality too, as evidenced by all my books and stuff. It's I guess it kind of. I read a good addiction memoir by Richard Hell not too long ago. This sort of 70s punk musician in New York, and it's really, he was pretty honest and frank. But it's just sort of in how they tell it. But actually, he wrote some problematic things too. So those we're we're reading books with a sort of hopefully more evolved lens as we go through life. And it changes the feeling. Why have you read anything that you hated? And you can be mean.
I can.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what? I am.
Okay.
And thank you for creating that space.
Yeah.
Thank you for your honesty.
I feel like I was a little diplomatic about mine, but
I think you were emotionally intelligent in your answer, and I think you were honest, and you didn't put it on.
Okay, but you know what? I'll just say I hated that book.
Okay, and thank you, because now I feel better about what I'm going to say.
Okay.
So here's the thing, right? We're going to bring it back to Miss Sara J. Maas. I love this series. She popped her, bookacy book pussy with writing, and it's great. Now, that series I was just telling you about, A Court of Thorn and Roses, the first, I think it's like 3 or 4 books in that series, phenomenal, amazing. Like, the story was wrapped up. It's great. It's fun. Like, and it serves its purpose, right? Like, it's a fun read. You know what you're doing. I'm not reading, it's not Vonnegut. It's not whatever the fuck. It's just, it's a fun read.
The erotic ones.
Yes. Yeah. Like the smut books. But then I feel like she did a disservice to the story. And maybe this is a hot take, but I feel like they were kind of cash grabs the more the series went on. I think there's 2 or 3 more books after the initial 4. And I'm like, baby girl, you didn't need to do that because the story becomes watered down. We got the point, and the world became less magical in my eyes. And there was a kind of, I don't know, it kind of grossed me out because I could feel that she was writing it for a chat. That's how it felt.
Right. So it felt like she was faking it.
Yeah.
And not what you want in like a sex book.
I wasn't believing the magical world in which she built, because she builds these fantastical, really intricate worlds with really complex, like, maybe not complex, but like really just, I don't know, just like, like intricate character arcs and this and that. And I just felt like she was not staying true to the essence in which she started. Now, sure, there's a lot of porn in that series. Great. But then I just felt like these other books, she was just writing it just for like even though there's a lot of porn, there was still a lot of story, but I feel like we kind of lost the crux of the story just for like more, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, writers like she could have had a mortgage and like, they're like, yeah, we're going to pay you to keep writing them.
And that is true.
Yeah. Her heart just wasn't in it.
It didn't feel like it. Whereas this series, she put everything into this. I can feel it. But in the other one, I stopped feeling like, I felt like it was like seeing Oz behind the curtain.
And you lost a little respect for her.
Yeah. I mean, I still like went in to read this series, so she didn't lose me completely. But I know the goddamn truth of those last few books.
Yeah.
And they were cash grabs.
I mean, that's amazing. That's sickened me. That's amazing that you know her voice so well that you could pick up on it. I wonder if other people can too.
Maybe I need to get a life.
Did you go searching? Did you like go on Goodreads and see if other people felt the same way?
Yeah, and I haven't seen too many of that. And then I talked to my friend. I'm like, can you fucking believe that? Can you believe these last few books? And she's like, oh my God, I loved it. I thought that story was so hot. And I'm like, God, you're being simple.
Wow. So no one.
Oh my God, I'm kidding.
No one knows her like you do.
I guess not, sweetie.
Yeah. That reminds me, like when I was younger, my mom had Anne Rice erotica books written around the house. Yeah, but she wrote in like a pseudonym. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I like definitely dabbled in some enchanted erotica as a teenager. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
For me, I'm like, I don't want to read about like 2 humans doing it. I'm just like, okay, like we gotta.
Oh, okay.
For me, yeah, I don't know what it is. That doesn't really grab me. It needs to have some fantastical aspect.
It's got to be enchanted.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair. All right. Well, so a love-hate relationship then.
Yeah. Keeping it interesting.
The writer you started with, that you're head over heels in love with the 8-book series of, it turned out to have a couple misses too.
Yeah, it's like, because this series specifically is kind of like, did you ever watch Game of Thrones?
I did.
Okay, you know Arya's storyline?
Yes.
Okay, it's kind of like that.
That's what I thought of when you brought it up a little.
Too bad I'm not good at describing anything, but it's really amazing. And her imagination just really leaves me dumbfounded, because I can't believe someone could create this entire like, I feel like you would need like a whiteboard the size of this room to write out every single character and every single storyline and all the history and all the explanations. It's wild.
Just the output in this distracted age. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just got to be someone who's just not enamored by technology, so they're like, yeah, no, this is what I like to do with my time.
Right.
Like go that deep into a story and just think about that story all the time. But yeah, I mean, 8 books, and then that output, that level of output, I almost feel like you got to give her a break for the couple that didn't land with you.
And see, at the end of the day, Sara J. Maas, that's my bitch. That's my girl.
Okay.
That's my sister in Christ.
So you do forgive her.
I forgive her, but I just want her to know I know what she was fucking doing.
Yeah. And that's fair.
It's like sometimes I'll write a lazy joke and then I'll be telling it And I'm like, this feels gross.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I could have tried better. I could have had a more interesting take.
Yeah. And you know.
And I know what I'm doing. I needed a filler or something.
Yeah.
I could have pushed myself a little bit more. I could, you know what? I should have put the books down and I should have picked my writing up. But instead I'm like, fuck it.
Do you have any jokes in your act about books?
I'm trying to make a joke. It has no ending yet, but kind of just like what we're talking about. I was inspired by me reading the sexy books on the train, because I'm like, I felt like a pervert.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, if I saw a man reading or watching what I'm describing, I would literally tell someone, I'd be like, this is I feel unsafe. This is very sickening. And then here I am, on Amtrak, just being absolutely inappropriate.
It's
but
like female privilege.
Yeah, it honestly is. But so I'm trying to write a joke about how like men watch porn, women read it.
Yeah.
But there's not an ending, and kind of not really a beginning, but there is a middle.
Yeah,
so,
and a fascinating set of subjects, because that is like a real thing by all accounts. Everything I've read. Amtrak, was it a long ride? I mean, that's it's like 2 days,
36 hours, I think,
from Seattle to LA.
Yeah, it was
Did
a
you
lot.
do it for the sights or because it was cheaper?
I did it for the sights, and this is a few years back, and I used to be really codependent, and I had this huge fear of doing anything on my own, and I've flown alone before, kind of, but I don't know. I feel like I just needed to like push myself and just do something completely on my own and do something like out of my comfort zone, and it really helped.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you. Wow, way to challenge yourself.
And I was like, let's be uncomfortable on a train. But honestly, it was really beautiful. I would do it again.
Yeah.
I really want to do it again.
Yeah, trains are amazing. I know someone in their 50s who swears they've never eaten alone at a restaurant.
Really?
Yeah. And that I prefer to eat alone at restaurants. Mm-hmm. You do too?
Yes.
Okay,
so this is a similar personality thing.
Yeah.
And trace back to the books.
Trace back
and
to
our
the
hoarding.
Books. Yeah. Yeah, the codependency, other issues. Yeah, we can off mic this too. Yeah,
hey,
We can definitely go to the same group therapies if we want.
Okay. I'm not mad at that.
Well, so now as you move through your pile, I see the smallest book sitting alone. It's in pretty beat up shape, which is cool. It looks like, is there anything you want to tell us about this one?
I'm sorry for number one, for bringing 75,000 books. But number two, yes, this one's called Jumping the Nail. I don't even know who it's by. Oh, Eve, maybe Bunting? Yep, Eve Bunting. Have to turn this page to see it. I read this book. I honestly stole this book from the library in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I used to live, because I liked it so much. I said, I can't possibly give this specific copy up. Now, that was insane, and I see that now, but I want to make an amends to the library. But I kind of just got this book just because I liked the cover. This looked cute, and I thought I was going to be reading this like quick little like romantic book. This book is teeny tiny. It's only 172 pages, and it is one of the saddest things, one of the saddest dismal stories I've ever read. But I feel like it perfectly encapsulates like the melancholy vibes of being a teenager. Basically, it's about this girl, and they live by this huge cliff. And that's why it's called Jumping the Nail. And people, they jump into this thing, and something really horrible happens to her best friend, and her best friend is suffering from depression. And just like the way that this writer depicted teenage angst, and then having to juggle specifically a female best friendship in addition to having your first ever boyfriend, there was something so accurate and sad about it. And I remember, like, I wasn't in a big reading phase, but I just randomly read this in high school, and it's like one of the books that's always just on my bed. It's just like a comfort book, and that's why it's so ratted and tatted.
What do you find comforting in the fact that you feel seen by it?
Not even that. I think I read it each time because I'm really hoping the ending changes, and it ends in I actually read the ending as I was in the lift over here.
Hoping that it was going to be different.
Because I was like, just in case I do talk about this, I was like, I just want to make sure the ending's right. And I was like, what? My brain is so delusional. I'm like, 'cause it's not like that, right? And then I read the last 3 pages, and then I had to put the book down, and I'm just sitting in silence in the Uber, like, or the lifter out there. I was just like, oh no. I'm like, okay. So what's going on with me, sweetie?
Yeah,
But
you
yeah,
take comfort in the inevitability that things are going to end bad.
yeah,
Okay.
maybe.
So, and when they jump this nail on the cover, what you can tell of it, it looks like it's a body of water. Is that right?
Yes, it's like out into the ocean. So
Okay.
it's like a cliff that's being, it's a cliff, and then the ocean is right here. And this is like something that happens right off the bat in the book, and it just like takes place over the summer.
Yeah, like in a sense, you could think when it's almost like girlhood ends, and like the boyfriend is symbol of like entering into this idea of adulthood or something, like a loss of innocence.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just makes me wonder, like, why does it have to be that way? Why do we live in such a like parceled out society where it's like, okay, you have your friends and then you get your boyfriend and then you spend it's like everything's so like compartmentalized into these units of relationship.
Yeah.
Why can't everyone just get along? Is it because there's just
Exactly.
too much tension, too much unspoken tension, and all these like weird dynamics with people that we're like repressing? I don't know.
I think that's definitely part of it. I think also a lot of people, and I've been guilty of this before, I think a lot of people choose to spend their time romantically with folks that friends disapprove of. And I think that this world we live in has such severe intimacy issues that a lot of people aren't even privy to. And so we live in this state of like, we don't want to be abandoned. And so then like we like latch on extra hard to these intimate partners. However, something that I've really learned over the years is like, people can come and go, but like your friends are always going to be there for the most part. And so I feel like you just always need to make sure to like balance it. You don't want to lose your sense of self. That's another thing people really struggle with. I have a friend and she knows it, but every time she gets into a relationship, I don't hear from her. And then I only know that she's single when she starts hitting my line again. And I love her so much, but it is like a little bit sad.
Yeah.
It would be nice too if like we could like marry the two. I'm like, you can still talk to me just because you're with homeboy.
Yeah, exactly. And like that actually is going to make your time with your homeboy like a lot more enriched.
Yeah.
If you guys have your separate lives and you can bring friends around each other. And I mean, that's the whole goal.
Right. I think we need to also allow ourselves. That's also why I love these goddamn books too, because like there's pining, there's yearning, there's not instant gratification. And I feel like we need to let people miss each other.
Yeah.
And you also like lose that essence with social media too.
Yeah. I think that's such a great way of putting it. Yeah. That's it's nice to build that sense of longing. Yeah. And yeah, your friends inform you. Like I'll find myself working a bunch and, just kind of going through my routine and being really busy and being like, man, why don't I feel like myself? It's like, oh yeah, because none of the people I've been interacting with out in public have been people who've chosen to be around me and who I choose to be around
right
in my public life. And yeah, that's a big deal to maintain those friendships. It's one of the things that my wife and I very early on were just like, hey, my friendships are really important. I'm going to go play tennis. You're going to go do your thing with your friends. And yeah, we've maintained it and it's really cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And do you feel like you're best friends with your wife?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's also a really key factor into making a relationship work is you can't only just have the sexual attraction. You need to also just like love their spirit.
Yeah. That was the thing that jumped out at me real quick. And I would just say it to whoever would listen is like, I both like and love her. And that's like,
that's
it's
huge.
so simple, but it is huge. Yeah. And, yeah, it keeps tracking. Yeah, it's pretty amazing when it does work. But it's like through examining stories like this and through living your own mistakes similar to these stories that you like hopefully arrive at these places to where you're kind of open to those kinds of healthier things, it feels like. And yeah, just hearing you talk about the books, it's like, yeah, books they're not just companions, they're also instructional, but not in a beat you over your head way like in the good ones. It's just like through a lifetime of reading, you are assembling things, or things are just integrating into you without even really being able to speak them that do improve the way you look at the world.
Right.
Or at least like help you fine tune what you're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking earlier about like all the surrealities that have been put in front of us by media. And I feel like that does exist in books, but so much of also what you're saying, the effort you take into reading a book, you climbing that mountain, like you are laboring to come across ideas and stories, and you're participating in that labor, and it like anything that you work on, there's some results.
Yeah.
I don't know, what if you just read nothing but toxic books and it just made you like a just a sicker puppy?
That also can be tea. I feel, who was saying it? Someone probably on Haunted TikTok, because I have an addiction to that too, but someone was saying that like the music you listen to and the art you consume can directly influence certain aspects of your life. And I also had a therapist one time tell me, I was going through a wretched breakup, like just, absolutely, atrocious. And she was like, well, what are you doing to take care of yourself? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, I'm not partying or anything. I just am so sad. Da, 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 da. And she's like, no, that's not good enough. She's like, you have to actively show up for yourself. La, la, la. And then she was like, you need to stop. She's like, you need to cut off the sad music. And I'm like, well, I feel like it's helping. She's like, no, it's not. You're like sitting in bed just rotting all day. She's like, you need to make a happy playlist, and you need to like make sure you're getting an hour of sun every single day. And then just like, I don't know, she like kind of like taught me how to like be an adult to myself. Yeah. But I did have to start putting limits on the amount of sadness that I was grossly intaking. Yeah, I know. You get to the point where you're like, I can do sad all by myself. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's so cool. And what a journey of both reading and self-discovery. I've just really enjoyed our conversation. I've enjoyed it too. Yeah, I think you kind of got me to open up a little more than I usually do on the podcast. Okay, so, honey. Yeah, I really appreciated that. And your book selections are great. I don't even know where the self-consciousness was. This is an amazing pile. Okay, number one, thank you. Number two, as we were talking, and I have a chronic oversharing problem, so I'm just going to say this. I had an ex one time. He was like a faux intellect, and intellectual, and he would always make fun of me for the books that I liked. And I remember one time he asked me, what's your favorite book? And I said, Walk 2 Moons by Sharon Creech. Get into it, get out of it, and then get back into it again. And he was just like, isn't that a book for kids? And I'm like, oh, fuck off. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Fuck off. That is she's a phenomenal writer, so that get over it. That is an absolute fuck off. Yeah. But I that just, certain things that people say, like, just kind of like stick with you. Oh, 100%. And that stuck to me like tar. So 100%. Like, and they're usually like really unfounded and inane and such clear representations of that person's misery, and yet you can't help but for whatever reason it just hits that combination and it sticks with you. Is it true? Am I a big dum-dum? But or it's just like perfectly annoying. It's like perfectly suited to annoying exactly who you are, and they know that. And a few things just popped into my head right away, and as you were saying that, but no, my feeling, and especially as I do this podcast more and more and hear people talk about books more and more, it's like, just read what you love. Like, let it be the sort of source of heat in your life. You go to that, and then, you end up sort of finding yourself that much more. But even if you didn't, it would be worth your time. Yeah, totally. So thank you for such a great conversation. We laughed. We talked about crying. Harper-Rose Drummond, please check out her podcast, Tea Time. Yeah, and everything else she does, because she's great. And hey, do you want to read a few book recommendations? I do. I was going to say, did we chat too much? No, I think it's great. Okay. You can now give us your book recommendations. Do it in the comment section on our YouTube. It selfishly helps our videos. But also, it's a place where instead of just emailing me and it living in this email inbox, potentially other people can start talking with each other about books, and that's fun. And then we can kind of create a book ecosystem more than just a back and forth between me and listeners. So in the past, I've just read them all, but I feel like, do you want to read one of them? Yeah, sure. Okay, cool. And we'll just talk briefly about them, unless you don't want to, and then I could, I can do it. Okay. I can do it. I read all the time out loud on my podcast. Oh, you do? But I just want to let you know that reading out loud, I don't even know why I chose this, because it is I feel like I always just start stuttering. So
Okay, I'll read the first one.
you know,
hang
yeah,
on to that one.
you go first, and
It's
then
weird. I do the same, and I've done it here. I get nervous reading.
right. There's something so weird about it. I'm like, ooh.
I'm with you. Okay. Well, we have 3 great book recommendations, and I'm going to read our first one to you now.
Okay.
Sutri by Cormac McCarthy. I know Blood Meridian is in vogue, but Sutri is McCarthy at his best. It's centered around Cornelius Sutri, an educated family man who exiles himself along the Tennessee River in a dilapidated houseboat, and his adventures and interactions with the other people who live in the slums around Knoxville. It has heavy agnostic undertones, but in a way that's kind of different than other heavily agnostic works I've read, Moby Dick and Blood Meridian, for example. Just go read the first chapter. You'll get an idea of the prose. It's from Kyle Bradley Music, and Kyle commented on a few of the YouTubes to really drive home the fact that he thinks we need to read this Cormac McCarthy book.
Okay.
Yeah, so I appreciate the passion, Kyle. Thank you.
Okay.
Have you read any Cormac McCarthy?
No, I haven't, but I legit want to.
People love Blood Meridian.
Okay.
It's very violent. It's in fact, that's the only one I've read. The language is I call it thunder clappy, everything's so epic West, you know.
Okay.
Maybe I need to read it again, but yeah, Sutri by Cormac McCarthy.
I feel like I'm going to make a list of books that they've said, and then all the books that you listed, and that's going to be my next book haul.
Yeah, and I've read a lot of books that people have brought in on the show. And
really?
I've been
that's
super,
cool.
Yeah, really enriching.
So this is like a book club.
Yeah, an informal book club. Yeah.
Okay, that's sick.
Yeah, it's really cool. I call it like a book club without the guilt, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Even just hearing about a book is enough, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It brings it to life inside you, like all the books you brought in today did. But yeah, all the better if you can read a few. And you were talking about your friend earlier, how you were reading that book together.
Mm-hmm.
When a friend recommends a book that you love, that is a special bond.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. You kind of respect them for the rest of your life.
Yeah, truly. It's deeper than liking a song or a movie, in my opinion.
In my opinion too.
Y'all went through the literary trenches together.
Yeah, you went and did something alone, but you both were in the same alone. And that's a cool thing.
It literally is beautiful. Hi, I'm Jack, and I'm a 17-year-old from Colorado. The pod has been getting me through work the past few days and has helped me get back into reading. Oh, look what you're doing. That's so sweet.
It's amazing.
So thanks for doing it. I want to recommend probably my favorite book I've ever read up to this point, The Humans by Matt Haig. It's about an alien from a super advanced species who is sent to Earth to steal the body of a mathematician who discovers an answer to a problem that would advance humans to a spacefaring civilization. Its goal is to erase all evidence of the answer to keep humans from evolving, because supposedly it would be catastrophic to the galaxy if we did. When he comes to Earth, initially the alien is disgusted by humans, but over time its perspective begins to shift. I won't go into further detail at risk of spoiling it, but it is a profoundly beautiful and funny book that made me cry more than once. Oh, I'm in. I love everything you make. Keep it up. Okay, that is so wholesome.
So wholesome. What a great description.
Great description.
Jack is,
Jack, 17-year-old Jack.
From Colorado. Amazing writing. I mean, clearly you're a reader already to write a description that good at 17.
Yeah, no, truly.
And yeah, I'm down to read that book.
That sounds amazing. Honestly, that's great.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jack. And yeah, thinking about you working at 17, I'm thinking when I was bagging groceries at 15, podcasts hadn't been invented yet, but man, it would have been better if they were. And on my break, I had something. So that's really cool to take me back there.
That's sick.
To my early working life.
Yeah.
And Jack, they say working young builds character. It doesn't. It just increases your hatred for working.
That's honestly so true. I started working in a restaurant when I was 16, and I was like, oh, I deeply, deeply hate this.
Yeah.
I was like, my character is getting worse, actually, the longer I work here.
That's right. Exposure to adults in their most miserable places of their lives. Watching the clock go slower than you ever imagined it could go. Microwave minutes. Yeah, no, it didn't help. So find your way.
Yeah.
I wish you well on your way. We're all doing this together.
Period.
Okay, one last recommendation. Underland by Robert McFarlane. Boy, oh boy, it's a nonfiction book that covers the author's explorations, both physical and cerebral, of different underground spaces all over the world. He visits scenes of significance from the oldest known cave handprints left by Neanderthals to the first long-term storage facility for radioactive waste that's thought to outlast our species itself.
Whoa.
As someone who suffers intense claustrophobia, I was surprised by how much I adored this read. McFarlane weaves natural history, personal experience, and existential ponderings of the Anthropocene together with such fluidity. This book is dense, but is well worth the time it takes to read and mull over. Lately, I've been drawn to books that place us, humans, within a greater ecological and historical context, much like Braiding Sweetgrass and Erosion, Essays of Undoing. So if that's your jam, you'd love this one. Thank you for putting together such a lovely podcast. Kales.
Hell yeah.
Thank you, Kales. And I read Erosion, Essays of Undoing. I think I talked about it on one of the episodes of the show. Great book. It sticks with me to this day. Just beautiful nonfiction about this woman's life in Utah and the natural world and trying to save the natural world.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, and like she interviews this guy who they do these bids for federal lands to be drilled upon for like oil, and these activists go in and place bids of their own to try to stake claims on this land and then not actually do anything with it. And this guy went to jail for it, and he essentially said, like, look, until we give up our comfort and our myths of comfort, things are only going to get worse. And that's really stuck with me.
Wow.
I haven't given up my comfort, but it definitely circles around in my head. Like, yeah, this is how they trap us.
Yeah, totally.
But that's a whole other conspiracy show. My bad.
But I do love it. I love the way that the French protest, and I feel like the second that we start protesting like the French people do,
yes,
then we can see.
Can we all just get it together in the same way and understand that,
Exactly.
like, as workers, we all have sort of the same incentives to move forward and improve life for each other? Simple as that. I know. Got to hand it to the
Literally.
French. I wonder if, like, the way we've been conditioned to have distaste for the French is because we're not supposed to like how effective they are at protecting their lives as workers.
Exactly.
That's two conspiricies
Okay,
in like 2
now
minutes.
we're getting it.
I knew I'd
We
get
saved
them
it
in.
for the end.
Yeah. No, but yeah, seriously. And I do. Everyone keeps telling me to read Braiding Sweetgrass. One other thing about Underland, this book you recommended, is I bought my wife a book about refrigeration that she had heard on the radio. And she was saying, like, during the Industrial Revolution in London, they would keep cows in barns under the ground so that they could just get the milk straight up to people. And these cows, like, never saw the light of day.
Oh my God.
Yeah, really trippy.
Whoa.
But yeah, that relates to books in this, so I thought I'd bring it up.
I'm happy you did.
Okay, that'll
Dang, what the
stick
damn hell?
with us for a while with that
It literally
imagery,
will.
right? Well, Harper, thank you so much for this episode and for your conversation and really bringing it today. I appreciate your time, and thank you all so much for listening to another episode of Turek Books, and happy reading out there.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Turek Books. Be sure to like, subscribe, thumbs up, any kind of thing that could help us get listened to or watched by more people. We really appreciated having you and hope to see you again next week with a new guest and plenty of books. Take care until then.